Welcome to Wine with Chris. As you can tell, it's still Christmas time. In fact, it's almost the new year. We're almost into 2022, and I thought I'd just wrap things up with a final reflection on 2021. I talked last week about how, despite my immediate recollections, it had actually been a great year of wine drinking here on the channel, and as I visited each of you, some fabulous wines. And I just thought I'd look a bit deeper into this and do a short video using the Vivino app, which, as you know, I recommend. I've actually rated 7. I've actually rated 7 wines this year, the full 5 out of 5. Now that is far more actually than in previous years, so it must have been a decent year's wine drinking. And I thought I'd just take you through those 5 wines. But I can't take you through 5 wines that were perfect without having a glass in my hand. So just bear with me. I have here Chapel Down's Three Graces, 2016. Now, as friends of the channel know, I'm a shareholder of Chapel Down, and I've visited there in a previous video this year. But this bottle was actually a kind gift to me from my sister Nicola and friend of the channel Mark, her husband, and I'm going to crack it open in honor of the final Wine with Chris year video of the year. Three Graces refers to the 3 noble grapes used in creating champagne: Pinot Meunier, Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. They've used those 3 grapes in this Chapel Down Brut, and in fact it actually says on the bottle here, traditional method. So it is in every effect champagne, except that it's made in England rather than in France. So let's give it a pop. I've never tried the 3 Graces before that I recall. I don't think we had it when we visited ourselves this year. Gosh, that's a tight cork. Here we go. And beautiful. Now, just while I'm pouring that, I'm just going to have a quick glass. Erica isn't even home, so this isn't going to be a major champagne drinking session. But so I'm going to need a stopper. Now, I think I've talked about champagne stoppers on the show before. And I'm going to use this one. I don't recall the name of it, but you can look on one of the previous videos for that. But actually, the reason I mention it here, just a final look at that beautiful bottle, is a recent tip from friend of the channel Neil, and Andre backs it up, is this little guy, which I've just taken delivery of from Amazon, the Ad Hoc Gusto. I'm not going to use it right now because I don't know how to use it yet, but apparently this is the business and will keep champagne or sparkling wine fresh in the fridge for anything up to a week, which is amazing. So I'll be giving that a go, and I'm sure it will work well given the recommendations. Anyway, let's get on with the 5 out of 5s. Maybe I'll do them in chronological order, although let me start by telling you 7 wines, just checking, 2 of them red wines, 5 of them white wines. That blows me away, and we'll come back to that in a little minute. The first one, which I mentioned on the previous video just before Christmas, was one that I had in my kitchen. I can't think what I was thinking at the time. It was March-ish, and it was a Friday night. I think we had pizza, sitting in the kitchen by myself, and I think the Rhone, so maybe it was even February, the Rhone en primeur offer was out, and I was just wondering, what do I do? Do I get the Alain Vosges? Do I get Vieux Telegraph? What am I going to do? What about this Beaucastel? So I went and grabbed a Beaucastel from the cellar, 2007 Chateau Beaucastel, and thought I'll just have a couple of glasses of this tonight, because I need to know whether this is the one to go for this en primeur vintage, probably the 19 vintage. And it stunned me. It absolutely stunned me. As I said last week on the video, Beaucastel to me is just the perfect expression of red wine. So many components, long list of flavors and aromas that you get. You get so much back from every mouthful of Beaucastel. I just think it is incredible. It is the embodiment of red wine. And, you know, it just shows that night. You don't need to be having a grand dinner party or be in cellars in France or in a grand dining room. Have a pizza, sit in your own kitchen, drink a wine, and it can be stunning. And I won't forget that evening. I haven't, it's 10 months ago. So that was the first 5 out of 5 this year, and it was one of only 2 red wines, this one from the Rhone. The second 5 out of 5 wine of the year was at friend of the channel, Andre's. And he may think it would be the Elodie, but it isn't the Elodie. I think that was a strong 4.5 out of 5. But this wine was actually a sweet wine, and it was the Vin de Constance 2009, an ancient wine. It's been made since Napoleon's times. Apparently he was a great drinker of Vin de Constance. And if you want to check back at the video, we did a tasting of that in detail. I think that was back in May time. And it was stunning. It was incredible. I am a lover of sweet wine, as some of you guys know. I like Sauterne, and I love some Sauterne. I absolutely adore Canadian ice wine. I love the Tokaj from Hungary, and the Vin de Constance was new to me. And I remember remarking on the Vivino app, this isn't like Sauterne, it isn't like Canadian ice wine. Maybe it's like Tokaj, because I haven't drunk Tokaj for a long time, so I'm not as familiar with the flavours, but it was certainly distinct from the Sauterne and the ice wines, and it was remarkable. It was a 5 out of 5 wine. Then we headed over to Ireland, and what a week that was. I went with my parents to Connemara with the kids, and my dad laid it on thick. We had some phenomenal wines, phenomenal red wines that week, including the Saint-Henri that I mentioned, the Penfolds Shiraz from Southeast Australia, and that was a remarkable wine. Not a 5 out of 5. I think I gave it 4.5 out of 5. We had, I think, a Lynch Bage from back in the 1990s. We had a Vineyard, the Argentinian wine, was from 1994. So we had a plethora of stunning wines that week, and remarkably, there were not 1 but 2 5 out of 5 wines that week, and neither of them was red. The first one was the Paul Roger Blanc de Blanc 2004. Now, you know I'm biased. I love that wine. I had 6 of the 2000s. Many of you shared them with me, and it just blew me away. The best glass of wine I had last year, single glass because we shared it out, was a glass of the Paul Roger Blanc de Blanc 2000. It was all done, and it just lingered for so long in my memory that I thought, I've got to get more of this stuff. The 2000s are all gone, so I snapped up 6 of the 2004s. Took 1 over to my father because we'd been drinking Dom Perignon 2002 the week before, and it was remarkable, so classy, so refined. The mousse was just like silk, and I said to my dad, I'm coming back in a week. I'm going to bring a bottle of the Paul Roger with me because you've got to try it. And I've just realised I haven't got the microphone on here, so I hope this has been picking up okay. Sorry, just a slight panic there as I realised I hadn't got the microphone, but I think the sound's okay in the first half. I'm just going to pause actually and have a go at this Three Graces Chapel Dan, the great English winemaker from Kent. Oh, that is delightful actually. It's dry, but it's not bone dry. It's actually showing some age. A little bit of age there. Nice complexity in the flavour. I'm a bit disappointed because I got this, as I said, from my sister and brother-in-law, and then as a shareholder I got an exclusive offer to buy some magnums of the Three Graces at a knockdown price, £53 per magnum, which is whatever it is, 26, 27 quid for a bottle of champagne, which is incredible value. But I was just on, it was pre-Christmas, I was on a bit of a money saving kick, and so I'll just wait because I haven't tried it yet. Might not be good. Obviously now I'm trying it and I'm kicking myself. I did go back and see were there any still for sale, but it was all sold out. So I've missed that, and I recommend that to anybody who can get their hands on it. It might be a Waitrose thing. I think they might even sell that. Anyway, I was talking about the fourth 5 out of 5 wine, still in Connemara, and as I said, or as I was saying, it was a wine that became a 5 out of 5 on reflection. I think it was either at the end of the night upon which we drank some wines, or even the next day, or the end of the week, I can't remember which, when I just thought, do you know what, out of all those amazing wines that we drank, and lots of amazing red wines, setting aside the champagne, which is something different, this wine knocked them out of the park. And the wine was the Cumio River Mates Vineyard 2018. Dad served it up. I'd had it before, I think, but I wasn't really familiar with it. I certainly didn't own any at that point, and I went straight home, and the next week I bought 6 of the probably 2019 or 2020 because it was stunning. Easily a 5 out of 5 wine, easily something that rivals a grand white Burgundy, and at the price, it's not cheap. I think it's about £40 a bottle, but when you think what a Pellini Montrachet costs you these days, this stuff is the business, and it will last easily 10 years, probably 20, so have a look out for that when it becomes available. Then we had a long break. These were all, so we got 4, the Beaucastel, the Vin de Constance, the Paul Roger Blanc de Blanc, the Mates Vineyard from New Zealand. And as you can see, 3 out of 4 of those wines were white, 1 of them was sweet, and they all took place before May. Then we've 3 more 5 out of 5 wines to go, and the next one I had to wait a long time. It happened 2 or 3 weeks ago, when I had Mark and Andre and partners over for dinner. We had a wonderful meal, and there were 2 5 out of 5 wines in that meal. And let me tell you, we had Chapel Down, not even the big brother of this one, I mean the big brother of this one, the Coeur de Cuvée, which is literally the finest champagne style wine made by Chapel Down. It's from Kit's Coty plot, which is their uniquely fabulous Chardonnay plot, and it is from the finest grapes taken from the very sunniest centre part of that plot, and the first press goes into the Coeur de Cuvée. Not a 5 out of 5 wine. I think we all loved it. I think the mousse wasn't as delicate or as silky as the Dom Perignon. It probably speaks for itself that it wouldn't be. But this is not a cheap wine. That Coeur de Cuvée is £100 a bottle. I didn't pay that as a shareholder, but that's for the retail price. Dom Perignon's more than that, but I think that's what you need to be comparing it with, is very fine champagne, and it didn't quite have it on the mousse. And on the flavour, it might have been the vintage 2015. It's just a bit green, just a little bit too green, but very fine champagne, not 5 out of 5 that night. We went in, sat down, I served pork belly and a pork tenderloin and braised red cabbage, and I paired it with 2 Rieslings. One was the Grosset from Australia, the Clare Valley Riesling, bone dry and ancient. It was 2005, 15, 16-year-old white Riesling, and that was lovely, but it wasn't the 5 out of 5. The 5 out of 5 wine, for me at least, that we paired with the pork, a fabulous combination, was the J.J. Prum Zeltinger Sonnenur. Now, you've got to try and remember that, Zeltinger Sonnenur, because J.J. Prum has loads of plots and loads of designations across their range of wines. Zeltinger Sonnenur 2015. It's a Riesling Spätzle, 5 out of 5 wine for me. Now, your Rieslings in Germany and elsewhere come in different degrees of sweetness. I won't name them all, but you've got Trocken is the dry, one of the driest wines. The Spätzle is then getting, Trocken, dry, Cabernet, kind of off dry but pretty dry. The Spätzle is then starting to get sweet, and then really at the sweetest end, a proper sweet wine like your Vin de Constance would be an Auslese. This was a Spätzle, so pairing it with the Grosset, which was bone dry Riesling, this was quite sweet Riesling, and it blew me away. I think on the night I only had one couple of sips, one small glass of it, because we were sharing wines around, and it left an impression. It was incredible. J.J. Prum, one of my favourite producers from Germany, from the Moselle River Valley. But this wine, this particular Zeltinger Sonnenur, fabulous, and 5 out of 5. Later that night, the big gun, I mentioned it last week, the Klosterpapp 2010. Yes, it was a 5 out of 5 wine. 98 out of 100 on Wine Spectator. I remember standing up, it was a bit late on in the night, and saying, "This is wine soup." I mean, it was huge in the mouth, huge fruits bouncing off the inside of your mouth, huge body. It was just a massive wine. We'd been warned it was a massive wine, very heavy wine, but it was incredible. It was all there. It was a bit like the Beaucastel, but different. I won't even try and make a good go at that distinction, but you could definitely distinguish between the two. And, you know, they're both Chateauneuf de Pape. So it's not even, well, they're both Rhone, but they're different parts of Rhone. Both Chateauneuf de Pape. One 3 years older than the other, but an incredible wine. The Clos de Pape 2010. And that was the 6th out of 7 5 out of 5 wines. Now, wait for it. I then, you know, a week later, no fanfare, a bit like the Beaucastel, not quite in the kitchen with pizza, but not far off. I caravaned a glass of another Riesling Spätzle because I'd had such fun with the JJ Prum, but hadn't tasted enough of it on the night. This one, a Maximin Grauhauser. Maximin Grauhauser, again, Moselle River, Riesling Spätzle, 2015 again, same age as the JJ Prum, 5 out of 5. That was my 7th 5 out of 5 of 2021. Let's pause for a drink. Now, as I shoot this video, the year isn't over, so there may be more 5 out of 5s, in which case I'll have to do an adjunct to the video. We've still got New Year's Eve to come after all. However, let's take a recap. We've had 7 5 out of 5 out of wines this year, so perfect score wines this year. That's highly unusual for a year where there might be 1 or 2. Amazingly, 5 of them white, 2 of them red, both the red from the same part of the Rhone. So not even the same country or the same region, the same part of the same region. That's amazing to me. And the other 5 white wines. I'm a person that drinks 80% of my wine is red. How can 5 out of 7 of my favourite wines this year be white? It's incredible. Not only that, 3 of them were effectively sweet wines. One of them is straight out dessert wine, the South African, and 2 Riesling Spätzle. So it's incredible. You know, how do you analyse all this? I suppose just drawing some random observations. Clearly I love Riesling, and I already knew a couple of years ago that I loved Riesling. I loved German Riesling. I bought a lot of Cabernets, not so much Trockens, but the Cabernets, which are the dry or off-dry. And I liked them, but I didn't love them. A bit like the Grosset, the Clare Valley. I like it, but I don't love it. It's bone-dry Riesling. What I realised is that Riesling, it just expresses itself and sings to me from the Alsace or from Germany when it's sweet, when it's got a bit of sweetness in it. And then it takes on that sort of wine ice cube feeling, you know, as I described. It's like an ice cube of sweet wine melting in your mouth when you drink that stuff. It's crystalline. It's like when you see people climbing Everest and there's a glacier with blue ice. That's what I get with that wine. Liquid gold would be another. I love the Riesling. So no apologies for picking 2 5 out of 5 Rieslings. The Mates Vineyard, probably the biggest surprise in the 5 out of 5 wines. It was just, you just couldn't not give it. It was so well constructed. Such an amazing wine. A bit like the Cristallum. Just a perfect expression of what it's trying to be. Paul Roger, again, biased, old favourite, just love that wine. It's like sherry almost. It ages incredibly. Blanc de Blanc, Chardonnay only, fizz. Give it 15, 20 years. It does magical things. Another huge surprise, not that it became a 5 out of 5, but just because I didn't know it, was the Vin de Constance. And then the 2 reds. I mean, I think, sorry, bouncing around, if we just jump out, we've got 2 reds, 5 whites. That's the reverse of what I should expect, given the way I think I like wine. I like red wine more. And I think what that says to me, and I just put this out as a hypothesis, is that white wine is maybe either easier or it's clearer in a white wine that it can become the perfect expression of itself or of the grape. You know, I said in the previous video and a bit here today that the Beaucastel, if a Martian came down and they said, what is red wine? I would give them the Beaucastel because I think it is the perfect expression of red wine. And for some reason, I think maybe that's either easier to achieve or is just more clear to sense in a white wine. You know, I've had the perfect Riesling this year. I've had the perfect bottle of sparkling wine this year. I've had the perfect Chardonnay. This year I've had the perfect, I don't even know what Vin de Constance grape is. Maybe I'll flash that up. I've had that this year. Turning to the reds, I think while I love red doesn't often hit the heights of perfection for me. And maybe, I don't know why that is. Somebody better than me would need to explain that, but maybe we can all ponder it, and maybe even together at some point. And what's incredible is the two red wines that I have said were perfect were both Rhones. And as I said, I think again on the last video, my tastes are changing. I've heard of people, in fairness mostly women rather than men, as they age, they just can't handle the big blockbuster wines anymore. You know, they want the gentler wines, the Riojas, the Pinots, and they don't want to be drinking Rhones or big heavy Aussie Shiraz or South African Shiraz. I'm actually finding the reverse. I used to shun an Aussie Shiraz as a big fruit bomb and a big kind of eucalyptus thing and a big sticky toffee thing. Listen, I love it. I loved the Saint Henri this year. I've loved the Cool Climate Shiraz and the Stonewell Shiraz. And at the end of the day, the Châteauneuf de Pape are in part Shiraz. They're all those sort of 12 or 13 Châteauneuf de Pape grapes, but they're huge wines. You know, they're big, blockbuster, sun-filled wines. And these are the wines that I think are expressing themselves as the perfect versions of red wine. I don't really have the conclusion to that, but that's kind of what inadvertently I have ranked this year. Anyway, I've banged on long enough. As you can see, I'm still kind of digesting and sort of figuring this out for myself, but I hope it's been in some way interesting, and I hope that you can pick, you know, at least 2 or 3, if not 7 or even 10 wines that you've just sort of held in your hand and said, you know what, that is perfection. I'm loving every second of it. And if you haven't, keep searching, because they're out there, they're in your cellar, or they're, you know, to join your cellar in the future. Don't stop until you find them, because that's what wine can do. That's what wine can be. And I think that's all I've got to say. I'll finish up. Cheers. I wish you all a happy new year from Wine with Chris. As I said, I hope to be back next year, certainly up in Edinburgh. Maybe we'll do another tour of all of you guys and pick up some great wines and show them off to our friends. But anyway, in the meantime, from here in the tasting room at Wine with Chris, Happy New Year. I wish you all the best 2022. They've stopped us in a lot of our freedoms, but they can't stop us drinking great wines, at least not yet. So keep taking advantage of that freedom that we all have, and the more we can do it together, the better it will be. Cheers. Thanks from Wine with Chris. Take care.